welcome. So in this lesson we want to continue on the particulate nature of matter. So previously we were talking about isotopes, and when we talked about isotopes we gave particular mention to the fact that isotopes are not okay because of the differences within the number of neutrons. So now we want to look at another thing, which is the number of electrons. So when we talk of my electrons move from place to place, change their numbers, right? We talk of a species that is known as ions. So my ions by definition, ions are charged particles that are formed when an atom gains or loses electrons. Are we together? So we are saying that an atom redu rine zvinhu two zvikuitika. Number one is to gain an electron. Number two is to lose an electron. There's always a reason why it gains and there's always a reason why it loses. But first of all, in this slide, toda kuti tizive kuti if an atom loses electrons, it forms a what is known as a cation or a positive ion. So a cation or a positive ion is the one that is formed when atom loses electrons. Are we together? So a positive ion, let's say with X, so it becomes X plus, right? So if it becomes X plus, it means that it lost one electron. It becomes X2 plus, it means it lost 2 electrons. Then if it is X3 plus, it means how many? 3 electrons. So kana pakanzi 3 plus, 4 plus, whatever, it means it's what? Those number of what electrons that have been lost. But generally an atom can't lose electrons, maybe 5 electrons. That's not the end. Then twenda pane the other ones. When an atom gains electrons, it forms a negative ion, and that ion is called an anion. Not an onion, it is called an anion. An anion, it means an anode ion. Then a cation, it means a cathode ion. So we are saying the cat is for what? Cathode. And the an, it's for what? Anode. In other words, it is an ion that goes to the cathode. Are we together? Then an, it's an ion that goes to the anode. This one you look at it primarily when you study more on the topic electrolysis. Saka, which means that for foundation you have to understand what an ion is, and if it gains what electrons, it's an anion, and then if it loses electrons, it's a cation, it's a positive ion. And then let's go further. So question is, why form ions? Why is it that my atoms they have a strong desire to form what? Form ions? So the main reason is so that they can achieve a stable noble gas configuration. Are we together? So that they can achieve a noble gas what? Configuration. A noble gas configuration is a configuration where the electrons, they are not having any motive to move. Or why? Because the number of electrons in the outermost shell will be complete. Are we together? So for example, you have this X2 plus ion redu. This X2 plus ion redu, it means it lost what? 2 electrons. Are we together? Saka initially pangdaba pasina kuwi really teza tupone e 2 ndo angatoripo ndizvo. But those 2 angaripo atom, then it was lost. Are we together? And then it became a what? An ion. Rovara iskama brackets edu I. Then rovara pure up pagan's 2 plus, which is a charge. Are we together? The same, we also have an ion yedu yanzi 3 minus. Saka 3 minus zvichirevei? Minus meaning it gained 3 electrons, and it so which means to say kuti there are other electrons anga asingafaniri kunge ari muna y avemo muna y. Ndeapi? Ndeaya atinoona akasiyana achona, handiti 1 2 3. So which means initially range raive ringori nechi ne 5 electrons are outermost shell, but it gained the other 3, and ukatarisisa rabva rasara rine 8 electrons, and it then toisa mabrackets edu tobva tanyora kuti rakagaina chi 3 minus. And so you can see kuti from this we have 8 electrons are in outermost shell. From this also we have what? 8 are in outermost shell. Saka this one na 8 is what we call a what? A noble gas configuration. Are we together? So in general, metals lose electrons to form positive ions, and non-metals they form negative ions. Then kana ukazozviona manje zvakunyorwa in terms of equation, we would have these general equations, and this and this one. Saka tichiti x is the atom redu, but it will give us what? X maybe tobva tati 2 plus, and then plus the electrons that it lost, which is what? 2 electrons minus. And saka rikaluzawo 1 electron richifoma a 1 plus, rinenge rakuzobva yati x 1 plus plus 1 electron. Ndo zvazve zvichireva, handiti? Ichi ndo chatatanga nacho. These ones are the what? The products zvatichabuda nazvo, and so this one will be lost. Are we together? Anenge atova papoint yekuti abuditswa tangosara tine ichi chiri pacho chega, then ichi chiri pacho chega. Saka which therefore means zvandiri kureva ndezvekuti ichi chiri pacho chega, handiti? Then ichi chiri pacho chega. Ichi ndo chiri kubva chaluzwa chobva chanotorwawo nezvimwe zvinhu, handi? Same panapa would say what? Y wedu uyu gained electrons, so we'd have to what? Say plus what? Electrons. So let's say for example y again what? 2 electrons, and it then iye anobva aita iyechi y2 minus. That's what happens, and it so we'll be saying y wedu again 2 electrons, then over form y2 minus. Those are the general what? Equations. Saka you should be able to write those 2 general equations, particularly kana wazova kumberi ukoko kuelectrolysis tinenge tichida mageneral equations ekuti zviye zvikuitika. And then we look at the first example iri kutiratidza what's happening, and so we are saying from sodium atom to sodium ion, and so sodium atom redu rakadai so rine 1 electron iri in the outermost shell, so we lose this one. After we lose at this one, takubva tasara tine these ones. These ones are the ones anga ari mukati muchi muno, so which means this shell has been lost. Saka pasara pangova ne 2 mashells, kuva ne 2 mashells. Then we put our brackets. Our brackets are kureva iwo kuti chi this one its overall what charge is a, then over also t plus, and then would want to analyze certain things, because last time we looked at electronic configuration, which was the arrangement of electrons within the shell itself, within the atoms, and it so which means kuti we can have an electronic configuration of both the atom and the ion. Are we together? Saka which means kuti panapa written electronic configuration yedu tatine e, and it 2 yekutanga 8H2 then 1 repetitive. But then this one iri ndoro kunzi it will be lost to it, that will be the loss of the valence electron. Then takubva tasara tine chi tine electronic configuration yangova chi 2 8. Are we together? So which means kuti my number of electrons edu ava 10 but angambori 11, saka 11 to what, to 10. And it saka kana tabva from 11 to 10, that's the number of what, electrons. But add the number of electrons, remember isusu pane patachimbotaura kuti number of electrons is equal to what, number of what, protons. And it saka that only applies to what, to atoms chete. Kana watoona yatoita ion, which means number of electrons ndizvo zve, number of electrons, the number of electrons is no longer equal to what, to number of protons. So which means my protons acharamba achimaintain a number yao, but my electrons adzikira. And because of that, panobva paita an overall what, overall charge of the ion. And it saka let's look pa sodium yedu pa number of positive charge. And it the number of positive charge yedu is 11 plus. Then pa sodium ion is 11 plus. Then my plus edu my positive charge ma protons. And it mwana kuti ko positive charge rabva kupi, ma protons. And then number of negative charge tikuti machi electrons. And saka kana riri sodium atom tine 11 protons ne 11 electrons. So the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. And it then the charge yedu, overall charge yedu, teta ichiti tikati 11 plus minus in minus 11 inobudisa chi 0. Are we together? Then on sodium ion we have 11 plus, which is my number of protons yedu, it's 11. Then my number of electrons we have 11 minus. And saka tikati 11 minus 10, it gives us what, plus 1 or 1 plus. So that would be the overall charge of the sodium ion. So therefore we come up with the equation Na to give us what, sodium ion plus the lost what, electron. And it let's go to the next one. Next one is still the same. We lose this electron and this electron and got in the outermost shell. So a total of 2 electrons are lost. Then at chanyori shell iroriland chanyori shell irori tangosia the one remkat. So tasia the one remkat to some brackets head to vataratidza kuti takaita sei takalose what, 2. So it's 2 plus. And then it remains the same for every other thing zviripo. Then the overall equation yedu inenge iri ino, because we are saying mg yedu, it becomes mg2 plus and it lost 2 electrons. Then the same for aluminium, tunongoita the same zvataita previously. And it then we go to fluorine or fluoride, from fluorine to fluoride atom. And it so now this is a negative ion, and saka a negative ion, it gains electrons. And unlike kokotachiti, it loses electrons, now here it gains electrons. So if it gains electrons, it's an additional plus electrons. And it saka we then have this one being the one that is gained. Saka x way angachobva somewhere over atongonzi pa over atoenda apa patetese, then wotoona rato gainer electron. Then once that gainer tobva taisa that one, and then ese ava 8 ari muuyu, saka ari 8 kudai, so ta achieve a noble gas configuration. And it then tadaro we'll then have our equation being what, F then plus an electron to give us F minus. And so if we were to analyze the positive charge, which is number of positive charge, is the number of protons, and the number of protons, there will be 9. Then for the atom, then the number of electrons from the atom, there will be 9. But the number of electrons for the for the ion, tinenge ta gainer 1, and ta gainer 1, saka it becomes what, 10 minus. Why is it becoming 10 minus? Because we are saying an electron is negative. And it saka in other words urikuti 9 minus 9 plus what? Minus 1, which is equals to minus what? 10. That's how we obtain what? 10 minus. So the average net charge yedu inenge 1 minus. Then let's move on to the oxygen atom to oxide ion. We are saying there are 2 electrons that are gained, right? Saka tiri kuti pane rimwe electron panapa pane rimwe panapa richagainwa apa rinoenda apa rogainwa apa rinoenda chi apa pandi. So therefore we come up with this, toisa mabrackets edu, we then notify apa ndo pane maui edu atinawo, and iwo kamanyora akaita macircles kudai unenge watadza. Reason yawatadzira ndeyekuti waita sekuti ma-electrons awedzera, ezina kuti angowedzera on their own inge ese ndeye oxygen. Hatise iyoyi. Why? Because ese aseshi oxygen, handitika, because oxygen it gained electrons from somewhere else, handit. Saka tikakombewa futi number of electrons, number of electrons edu awedzera, handitika, angambori 8 minus ubva awedzera with 2 electrons 2 minus, handitika. Saka tikati 8 minus 8 minus 2, it gives us what? 10 minus or minus 10. And then the oxide ion redu rerakadai, we have our oxygen, we add in 2 electrons, and then it gives us what? O2 minus. So that's the general equation yedu. Then we have a nitrogen to nitride ion. The same principle happens, but nitrogen is gaining how many? 1, 2, and 3. Then it becomes a nitride ion, and the overall equation will be this one. So having looked at the ions edu, would want to consider this term because it's a term tishande hand in hand with what? With ions. And saka our term ratruda kusangana naro nderekuti valency, and so valency is the number of electrons an atom gains or loses, and it. So in other words, this valency number of gains loses it or what? Sorry, or shares to form a what? A bond, and it. So this number of electrons are kuendeswa. That's what would determine to be our valence. So valence yedu, it is determined by the valence electrons. Saka they ukona kuti pane two spellings are different. We have valence and we have valency. So valence electrons, valence chingoziva kuti inoperana iyi ndeye ma-electrons, number of electrons in the outermost shell, and then inoperana y ndeye the number of gained or lost. Saka it is determined by the valence electrons in the outermost shell. Then metals have a valency. The valency is equal to the number of what? Electrons lost. And saka let's say kuti the valence which is the number of electrons lost for a metal inenge iri, let's say kuti for Mg it's 200 to form 2 plus. And but if you can see Mg yedu e ukaitaza pa periodic table in the outermost shell inenge inechi 200. Sodium yedu inofoma wachi Na plus ine valence 1, but ukaitaza pa periodic table iri mu group 1, which means kuti the outermost shell inenge 1. And saka ndo pari kunzi hanzi the valence is equal to the number of electrons what? Lost. And then non-metals edu, the valency is equals to number of electrons that are gained. And it saka for example oxygen yedu gains 2 electrons to form kuti even 8, and you in a 6, but gainer 2 such that anita 8 you achieve a what? Noble gas configuration. And saka that 2 higher gainer is what we call what? A valence. Saka oxygen in a valence of 2, magnesium also has a valence of what? Of 2. And it saka, which means that magnesium it will form a what, 2 plus ion, then this one will form a what, 2 minus ion, because minus na plus avachatiudza kuti is it gained or lost. So for oxygen minus it is what, gained, then magnesium plus it's for lost. Then how to determine the formula of a compound using valency. Saka after understanding valencies ndizvo, it is also important for us to know kuti these ones can help us to what, to determine a formula. And so let's say for example tine magnesium and chloride tutese, saka tobva tati magnesium and what, chloride. And it, so magnesium yedu, first of all we find the valence for each atom. Valence magnesium is what, 2, then valence chlorine is what, 1. And it, then we write them as what, as ions side by side. So tiata Mg what, 2 plus, then tina Cl what, minus tutese. Then tadaro we ignore ma plus nema minus ndizvo, but we focus on their valences anenge asina mauyu ndizvo. In other words tina Mg 2 na Cl 1. And it, saka tadaro tasvika pane this what, stage, takuchiti 2 wedu odzika oenda apa, 1 wedu odzika obvaenda apa, then tikuti 1 ari kuenda apapa, 2 ari kuenda chi apapa, then therefore we have what, Mg, then iye inobvaita 1, then Cl ibvaita chi 2, then at the end of the day tinobva tangozonyora as what, Mg what, Cl 2. So this is how we form what, how we determine the formula of a what, of the compound. And it, first of all wanyora ari mawords ako, and it, then wobva wanyora mavalences ako, then wobva wanyora ma-ions achona, then you ignore the what, the charges kuti plus or minus, then wakuti ma-numbers yawo you drop them down diagonally. And it, then after that what one formula yako. And then toda kudetermine toda my examples, we want to determine the formula for the compounds using their valences. And so toenda for magnesium regatiti Mg yedu, then tobva tatichi oxygen O. And it, saka magnesium yedu ine valence of what, 2, then oxygen yedu ine valence of what, 2. And it, saka magnesium yedu yaiforma an ion which is 2 plus, then oxygen no form an ion which is 2 minus. And it, then after this takuchibva tatichi Mg, taku ignore ma plus yedu toti 2, tobva tati O what, 2, then we cross them down. And then yosara yaita chi Mg 2 O 2, kana yadai so cancel out 2 na 2 ava inobva yapesera yaita chi Mg O. So this one becomes our formula. Then toenda on the other one, yes, sodium and oxygen. So sodium yedu ine valence of 1, the oxygen yedu ine valence of what, 2. But mind you, if you are carrying a periodic table, anditika zvinokwanisa kutokuitira easy. Saka iwe uri kuziva kuti iyi iri mugroup chi 6, and mugroup 6 medu muri kungoda only 2 kuti dziite 8. Saka it's what, the valence it's what, 2 gained. And it, then iyi iri mugroup what, group 1. Saka mugroup 1 medu mungorine 1 iyo is what, it's lost. Saka takuchitichi sodium yedu it's what, Na ibvaita plus, then oxygen yedu it's O2 minus, then we then have what, Na toti 1 toti O yedu toti 2, then we cross, then yakuchibva yaita chi Na2 O1, which is the same as what, Na2O. So answer yedu inobva yasara iri chi Na2O. So that's how you what, you generate my formulas, that's how you do it. And then after you have worked on it, ndoda kuti munozoita so the work ndizvozve, then after you go through the work you unobva wazoitawo some revisions. But I think let me just pause a little bit. So these are the first questions, these are the next, these are the next. So you just pause the video and then you screenshot the question. This is the next, the next. So those were the questions. Thank you.